All right, good morning, friends. This is Dennis Miracle. Today I'm going to be stitching out for you the quilt block number 7. And let's get started. I have, it's the 8x8 size, you can see, which technically is 7.7 by 7.7. So it'll fit in an 8x8 hoop. And this is the design right here. And so let's stick our hoop. I've hooped up my, actually today, I know you won't believe it, I'm using no-show mesh instead of paper towels because this is quite wide, this particular, the 8x8 hoop, and the paper towels are a little bit narrow for the 8x8 hoop. But anyhow, let's run our first step, which will be our just an outline of where we need to place the batting. So let me do that and I'll be right back. All right, we're working with a design that's a little less than 8x8 squared. So I've taken and got a piece of batting and I've cut it, I believe I cut it 9x9, should be sufficient. And so I've covered the design with the batting. It covers all the lines, so that's just what you need to make sure of, that whatever you're using as batting covers all the lines of the design. So I'm going to next do step 2, which is going to sew down the piece of batting. So let's do that. All right, you can see that that has been sewn down, and step 3 is going to be sewing the placement lines for all of the different pieces, which we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 9 pieces, so that'll take a minute or two, and I'll be right back. Okay, I ran step 3, which is the placement of all these lines, and so I've selected. I just reached in and grabbed a bunch of fabrics. Plus, I wanted to have at least one solid color, at least one. And I've got a bunch of different kinds of fabrics, and I'm just going to work this like a puzzle and put what pieces, whatever I grab is where it's going to go. So that's what I love about doing these. I just enjoy it so much making these. So now we're ready to start our first piece. Let's look at our machine. And you can see that top left-hand corner is our first piece. That's where I try to remember to start when I'm digitizing. That first piece is top left, although sometimes I'm goofy and I don't do it, but that's another story. So let me find something to place there, and let's get going. All right, I've got some Christmas fabric here I'm going to use, and you can see here that first upper left-hand piece is what we're dealing with, and I have placed this piece of fabric where it will have a nice area outside of the into the margin, which is what I call the exterior portion outside of the design. So you want to always make sure that you've got at least a ½ inch or so outside of the design, so you have fabric left in the margin for when you get ready to do your seaming, when you seam this together as a block, if you use it as a block in a quilt. So anyhow, I've placed the fabric, leaving a lot, at least a ½ inch or so outside the interior of the design. So let me stitch that down, and I'm going to be trimming it, and I'll be right back. And it has been sewn down. I'm using black thread, so you can see it's been sewn down. And I am thankfully back to my main machine, my Baby Lux Solaris, here with my iron right beside me so I can do the proper ironing. And I ironed this piece before I placed it down. So let me take the hoop out of the machine, and I'm going to cut around the sides, and I'll show you what we want to do with that. So I'll be right back. Okay, you can see how I have trimmed that. I came in right from the side over here, cut straight in, and then followed this line this way, and then followed it up and straight off. So that's what you should try to do with every one of these blocks. And I noticed this one does not have an interior block, so they're all going to touch the outside of the exterior perimeter. So all of these you want to do the same way, cutting them close here in the center, but leaving a good amount outside the perimeter of the design. So anyhow, that's number one, and I have seen that, okay, this is different. I made this block probably 3 weeks ago. I'm that far behind, and I can see now that I apparently decided to do the tack down of the piece and the beautiful stitching inside. However, I'm not going to do any interior stitching on this. I want these words to be holiday and year and comfort. I want these words to be able to be seen. So just know that there is interior fill patterns for every single one of these pieces. And whether it's all in a separate step, each one of them, whether you want to use that is up to you. And in this case, I'm not going to use that. I'm going to go on to skip the step and go to step 6. So let's see what that is. Let me see. Down 1. Okay, and of course that's the next piece over to the right of what we just put down. So let me find a piece to go here and I'll sew it down and be right back. Okay, here's the next piece I've decided to use. I'm going to cut starting right here, cut right straight down along this line, right across here, right up through here, and straight off. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Okay, and this is what your next block should look like after it's been trimmed. And as in the last one, I'm not going to run the interior decorative fill. I'm going to skip a step. And as you see, that step would be going to the one on this far corner over here. So let me find a piece of fabric for that and sew it down. I'll be right back. Okay, you can see this piece I have sewn down. I'm going to come in right here, straight across, through here, up through here, and right off. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Okay, I don't know where I was at. I had to take a break and do something else, so Lord knows where I was at. Anyhow, I have, you see how I have cut this piece of fabric, leaving this nice generous portion over here in the margin, as I call it. And again, I'm not going to run this interior fill. I'm going to go to the next step, which goes over here. So I'll find a piece of fabric for that, and I'm actually thinking I might do some of the fills on these. I may switch from the black that I've got in my machine to the gold. I have a humongous gold. I think it's 5,000 yards or meters or something. I can't remember what. That I buy for like $9.99. That is Glide, I believe, brand, but it's beautiful and it's not tacky gold. It's not metallic, so it feeds beautifully, but I may use that here and here. But anyhow, I'm going to continue and find a piece of fabric for this little triangle here. And so hold on, I'll be right back. Oh, excuse me. You can see I have placed a piece of fabric here for this triangle piece that's right under here, and it's now I'm going to sew that down and I will be trimming it and I'll be right back. All right, I sewed that down and I came in from the side here, straight in, and cut along the lines here and then straight out, leaving a nice portion here in the margin. And I'm going to continue to the next. I'm going to omit the next, the stitching for the moment, the interior stitching, and go now to this piece right here, which is, according to my machine, the next piece to be sewn down. So let me find something pretty, Fred, and I'll be right back. All right, I'm going to go with this piece right here and sew it down and trim it, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, you can see that I've done the trimming there. As I said, I came in right from here, right off the side, cut all through here, up here, across here, and right off, straight off. And this is the next piece. So we're going to, I'll find something to place there. That's a big piece. It's an odd shaped piece. So I'll find something for that, place it down, sew it, and I'll show you how I cut it. Okay, you see the piece I have placed here, and so you hopefully can see the lines here. I'm going to cut straight in from here, across here, down here, across here, and straight off. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Okay, you see how I cut that? I cut it just as I said, I'd come right off here, straight here, up here, across here, there, and off. And boy, that was a cuckoo shaped thing, wasn't it? Anyhow, so let me get to the next one. And the next one, as we see on our screen, is this middle piece here, which is going to be a solid color. Actually, I'm going to put a yellow in there, and it's going to have a pretty design. You can see the pretty design that's going to be there. And I'll do that. I'll place that down, sew it, and sew the design, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. All right, now you see how that has been sewn, and I think that's really pretty. Gosh, it looks purple or something, but it's actually black, the thread. I don't know why that's showing purplish, or maybe it's just my eyes. So the next step is going to be this one over here. So let me find a piece of fabric for that, and I'll be right back. All right, I reached in my bag of goodies, and I have found this gray fabric here, and I'm going to place it right like this, covering, being sure that I'm covering outside the margin here quite a bit, and I'll sew it down and trim it. I'll be right back. Okay, now you can see the lines here, how it's been sewn down. I'm going to come in right from here, straight across, down, and off. And since this is gray, I think I'm going to run actually the fill that is, now that I've got black thread in, since it's gray, I'm going to run the the fill with black thread. And I've got one more to do. And I'm going to go back with gold thread and run gold in here, and maybe some over here. So anyhow, let me run the fill here and you'll see how it looks. All right, you can see how I trimmed it, coming straight in here, cross, down, and off. And I ran this fill here. And so the last one obviously is this one over here. And I'm going to run this fabric here. That's what I'm going to put there, this tan and white fabric. So let me do that. I'll sew it down and trim it and be right back. Okay, you can see how I came in straight here, up here, took a left, and then proceeded straight off. Now I'm going to change thread. I'm going to change to my gold thread that I use a lot of, and I'm going to fill in. I'm going to use, I'm going to go back and do some of the fills in gold, maybe up here, here, and here, and that might be it. But not sure. It might be here. But anyhow, I'm going to put some the pretty fills in, and I would assume all of you know how to back up your machine from one color to the next to go back to wherever you need to be. And if you, I just hope you know that. I'm sure that you do if you've had your machine for any length of time. So anyhow, I'm going to do those items, and I'll be right back when I change colors, and I'll show you where I'm going to go next. All right, now let me show you what I have done. You can see I have done all of the fills except for, I love this pretty snowflake here, and I did not do anything to cover it. or to go over it, but the rest I use gold and black to do some pretty fills. And I love this fill with stars with a circle around it, my favorite. Anyhow, now I'm going to leave the gold thread in, and I'm going to start the, well, as you can see, the stitching on the seams, the crazy quilt stitches, and I'm just going to run one right after the other. And like I say, I think I'll leave the gold in, and I'll run those however many there are. And then when I'm finished with that, I'll be back and show you how that looks. All right, now let me show you what I have done. I'm now up to step 30 of 32. I have done some gold fills. I have done some black fills. I have done some gold crazy stitches here along the seams, and I've done some black crazy stitch seam stitches. So the next thing to be done is step 30, which is going to do another exterior, basically what this is showing here with my finger, the exterior line block to sew down all these little pieces here so they won't be jumping up. And so that's the next step. So I'm going to keep the black thread in. That's what's in there, and I'm going to run that, and I'll be right back. All right, as you can probably see, I ran another exterior stitch or step number 30, and it just sewed down all of these little pieces so they're not flopping around, like right here. And if you're doing a quilt block, then you're finished. You would take this out of the hoop, remove the stabilizer, and then you could trim it however you want to trim it, with a 1/4 inch seam, 1/2 inch seam, or whatever. But probably, as you know, I don't quilt, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make this another little mug rug. So what I'm going to do now is attach on the back side a piece of fabric covering the design right side up. And I've cut one already 9 by 9, or I believe it's 9 by 9, maybe 9.5 by 9. I'm going to attach it here. I'm going to, on all 4 corners, I'm going to take and tape it down, and then I'm going to run step number 31, which is another round of stitches just like the last, but this is with zigzag stitches to give it a little more, just to make it a little stronger. So let me do that, and I'll be back in a moment. All right, as you can see, I have taped down a piece of fabric, about a 9-inch square, on the back of the hoop, and now I'm going to turn it back over and stick it in the machine. If you are feeling like it, you could take and put your bobbin thread, something to match this beautiful fabric here, which I think this, I'm not sure what this is, I can't remember, but it's beautiful, quite beautiful. You would put fabric or bobbin thread in to match whatever is on the bottom of your, on the back side of your hoop. I'm lazy. I don't feel good today, this week, this month. So I'm going to just sew it with black thread on the top and white bobbin thread in the bottom. So let me do that. It's going to put a row of a block all the way around of zigzag stitches, and when I'm done with that, I'll be back. Alrighty, and here's what happens when you don't pay attention. It's sticking up a bit. This piece of fabric was sticking up a tiny bit, and so it grabbed it and just sewed right over it. I'm going to take and cut it slightly right here so it will be it will lay flat. I'm not going to run that step again just for that. So anyhow, let me do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, I just did a little cutting, and it's left a little space right here that's not covered. You can see the under there, you can see the batting, the white batting, but I'm going to be running with the satin stitch right now, and I think it'll cover that up. However, the next thing we need to do before we run anything is we need to take our scissors here. We need to come in from the side here and cut right up to the zigzag all along the entire 4 sides. When you're done with that, you need to do the same thing with the whatever you're using as batting, you need to cut the batting right up to the zigzag stitches, and then when you're done with that, you need to turn it over, and you need to do the exact same thing with the back piece of fabric. So this will take me 5 or 10 minutes to accomplish, as I'm sure will take you, and so let's do that. And then we'll be running 1 or 2 rounds of satin stitch. People who know me know I like a beautiful satin stitch, and I never find that 1 round does enough. So I usually run, almost always run 2 rounds of satin stitch, which will cover everything and make it just beautiful. So let me do all this trimming as you do the trimming on your side, and we'll be back together in a moment. All right, I just wanted to show you how I've trimmed the cotton fabric right down to the right as it touches almost right at the edge of the zigzag stitches. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the batting, so I'll be right back. All right, now you can see that I've done the same thing with the batting. I've cut it back to the zigzag stitches, so I'm turning it over and going to do the same thing with this beautiful piece of fabric here. Cut it right down to the zigzag stitches. Okay, I've trimmed all of the excess past the zigzag stitches, and I'm going to stick this in now and run step 32, the last step, which is a step of doing satin stitches. And as I said many times, I'm probably going to run it a second time just to make sure everything is completely covered, and all you see on the top is the black thread. So let me do that, and I'll be back eventually. All right, I have run the first round of the satin stitches, and this looks pretty good, but not good enough. I'm going to run it again. And so I'll back the machine up 1 step to the last step, which is 32, and run it again, and I'll show you that when I'm done. Okay, I have just taken this out of the machine. I repeated step 32 twice, which is the satin stitching around the exterior line. And let's look at the back and see what it looks like. And yes, it looks good. Obviously, I told you I wasn't going to change. I left my white bobbin thread in, so it's pretty fabric. It looks the way it looks. So anyhow, I'm going to take this, I'm going to take it out of the hoop now, and I'm going to just trim around with my sharp scissors all the way around the exterior, and I'll be finished. And that'll be the end of this. So I hope this was, I think, number 7 block. I've already got 7 or 8 more made. I hope you enjoyed watching this. I think every one I do, the next one gets better. I'm using different techniques and such, and I hope you're enjoying this little journey that we're going on with these blocks, because I know I sure am. I love making them. I love sewing them, and I love creating them. So anyhow, I want to thank all of you who continue to support me in both word and purchasing my designs, and thank you, and you have a great afternoon, and I'll be back again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.